What's your carnal theory?
So my theory is that when we take long, deep inhales through our mouth during sex, this opens up the female pelvis to be able to receive penetration and more pleasure, and it makes it more possible for us to achieve what we all dream of, which is cervical orgasm.
My carnal theory has always been, why walk when you can dance? It is something that it's quoted by a dancer named Ellen Van Damme, I believe, but I first heard it when I was a child in the movie The Babysitter's Club. It was spoken by the character Jessie. Just dating myself a little bit, don't worry about it. And I always have connected deeply with it, both literally and metaphorically, obviously. To me, the phrase "why walk when you can dance" means to celebrate bigness. I feel like in our culture, we don't necessarily celebrate bigness, whether that is personality-wise or physically, or, putting a cap on the ceiling of our ideas and our dreams. I had a thought the other day that was about, I'm sitting here, developing and launching all these classes and getting more and more ideas on things we can do in them. And, I was struggling a little bit with some self-doubt. And I realized, I was like, I think self-doubt is rooted in the idea that that there's not enough space for my bigness, my sticky ideas, as I like to call them. And so I wasn't thinking big enough, and I think that when it comes to, the way that we live, just every day remembering there is enough space for me. I don't have to just cruise through my life. I can dance through my life, and I can be as big and as bright and as loud and as beautiful that I want to be.
The cervical orgasm is actually an experience of pleasure that is unique to the female body. There's nothing that is relatable in the male body. So a cervical orgasm is when we orgasm from and through our cervix, which the cervix sits at the end of the vaginal canal, and it's really it's the end of the uterus, it's the neck of the uterus, but there is the face of the cervix is what's exposed in the vaginal canal. So most typically, women experience clitoral orgasm, so experiencing pleasure on their vulva via their clitoris, or G-spot orgasm, which is just right inside the vaginal canal on the upper side. And those are all amazing and give us pleasure, but cervical orgasm takes us through an arc of pleasure that doesn't have the same experience of, say, a clitoral orgasm, which is most like a male orgasm, which you have this peak, and you have this penultimate experience, and then it kind of just drops off. A cervical orgasm is really like a full body experience where the entirety of the nervous system is activated through the vagus nerve, which is a very powerful nerve pathway that connects our cervix and many other organs to our brain. And the cervical orgasm is said to be an experience where you open up to pleasure, and then you plateau, and you open up to more pleasure, and you plateau, and you open up to more pleasure, and you plateau. And cervical orgasm has been likened to a deeply, profoundly spiritual experience in sex. So there have been many women who have spoken to, having psychedelic visions, or having, experiences where they go out of body in a really profound and beautiful way. It's not like you're dissociating, where it's a different experience than what we have been led to believe is the only way of experiencing pleasure, which is that, upswell of pleasure, peak, and then drop down. That cervical orgasm actually leaves a woman experiencing pleasure and openness and just feeling good for all day to potentially a week. And it is really a magical capacity of the female body.
So body liberation to me is the idea that my body, I don't have to apologize for my body. I don't have to make excuses for why I look a certain way or why it's the idea of not fitting into this societal norm that has been pushed on us through capitalism, through misogyny, through racism. This kind of idea that we are supposed to be thin and blonde and all of these, the stereotypical idea of how we're supposed to look, that we are free of that. We are free of that expectation, and that we celebrate that. We celebrate stretch marks. We celebrate skin tone. We celebrate, all different levels of mobility and all of that. So it's an active mindset. It's an active way to live. It's an attitude. And it's fluid and ever changing. And I'm discovering more and more about it every day, and I love it.
How does breath work into, maybe not, through joyful movement we see it, but is there other ways that you can use breath to connect to your body?
Absolutely.
What are some of those ways?
So I have taught voice and speech classes a lot, and I think that the breath can help us in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to mindfulness, because we can start to pay attention to our breathing patterns. Like, have you ever heard of the movie Waiting to Exhale?
No.
It's got Whitney Houston in it. It's from it's a wonderful movie. I highly recommend it. But there's this whole opening monologue in the movie where she's going on a date with this man, and she's talking about, getting prepared, and just her mental journey through going on a first date, and the hopes and the highs of it and the nerves. And then they get up and he takes her to dance, and she's got her arms around him, and she's like, and then we can exhale, and it's paying attention to things like that. When my breath is shallow, when I am clenching my shoulders up, am I nervous? Am I excited? Where am I mentally? And if I am feeling those ways and it's coming into my body, what can I do to maybe offer myself some self-care and some self-compassion and breathe through it?
So breath is one of the most important ingredients in achieving cervical orgasm, because our mouth and our throat are deeply intertwined to our pelvis, our vaginal canal, and our cervix. So when we are clamped up, closed up here, not breathing, we are clamped up and closed up down in our pelvis as well. So the more that we can relax the jaw, the more that we can allow breath just to flow in, which relaxes the rest of our body, we can then be open to receiving that sort of pleasure. Because some of us can get really afraid with the experience of oncoming incredible pleasure, because maybe we've never experienced that before, or whatever has happened in the past. And so through deep, long inhales, and obviously exhaling, we're not holding our breath, that gives our body the indication that, oh, this is a safe experience, and I can relax the muscles. I can open up the vaginal canal, open up the pelvis to receive whatever is penetrating me, because in sexual penetration, the uterus actually pulls the cervix up and into the body cavity, putting it in a perfect position to be stimulated in a way that provides pleasure. If time isn't given and relaxation isn't occurring, that the uterus doesn't pull the cervix up, and the cervix is actually too low in the vaginal canal, which can cause pain. I'm sure like most women that I've spoken to can relate to the experience of like that, oh God, sharp pain of too deep of penetration. So through the breath, we are able to send signals to the body that it is safe to open, it is safe to relax, and it is safe to deepen into this experience of blissful pleasure that perhaps we might not have ever experienced before.
Breath, I think that reminder of breath as a means of release and working through things is really, really powerful, because I think that ties into sex and sexuality and how we hold things in our body as well. I have previous lives are in performing arts and studied Alexander technique for a number of years, and a decent bit of that is you saying, like, when you said, well, I know how it's supposed to be, it kind of, there's some mind trigger. I was like, oh yeah, okay, like stand open and free, stand how I'm supposed to stand, or sit how I'm supposed to sit, move my arm, from the socket, use the full movement, which is very AT, very Alexander technique. And I can remember during many of those sessions, you'd be doing something and all of a sudden, your mobility suddenly just like expands, something unlocks and expands. And oftentimes I can remember associating that with when my coach was telling me to breathe, okay, we're gonna, breathe in, breathe out. Similar in yoga, you breathe in those positions and you breathe through them, and they can release into a deeper
stretch.
I reflect on my own sexual experiencing, and in the times when I have maybe felt like doubtful or start to worry about my partner or whatnot, I stop breathing, and like I just like like it's a sense of feeling like you have control of the experience. But with cervical orgasm and just receiving pleasure in general, we really have to let go of control and just allow the body to unfold in its ability to experience this.
When we deep breathe from our belly, that connects to our pelvic floor, and how we can open up, and deep breaths can engage the pelvic floor, and how that can allow a release for a more powerful sexual response. And something else that I heard, I think in a TED talk, was this woman said something about, she was talking about the science behind breath and sexual response, and and she said, the sounds that you make when you're making the baby sound very similar to the sounds you're making when you're delivering the baby. Which I thought was super interesting. And she actually played, the sound of like, I think it was a woman, and she's moaning from pleasure, from sex. And then the other one was like a woman delivering a baby. And it was this deep, like grunting, moaning, that kind of thing, of just like the sounds of her releasing and being in her body and figuring out what she needed. And, like,
we say guttural. We say gut.
Yeah,
that's
so
a word
guttural.
for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so guttural, and like it gives me chills to think about it. So yeah, and it's a deeply personal thing, the way that we breathe when it comes to pleasure.
And I know a lot of the things you talk about on your social media and your website and your resources and all that is listening to your body and tuning into that. And do you see breath as that main route to tuning into that, or meditation? How do you tune into your body and your cervix?
Yeah, so breath is like one of the top 3 ways. And as someone who has held her breath a lot during her life, that I notice almost immediately when I'm not connected to my body, when I'm noticing that my breath is very shallow. So for me, breath is this continuous piece of awareness where, you know, I have like little reminders on my desks and stuff just to remind me, like, oh, check in with your breath, check in with your cervix. And so often I will actively send my breath down to my cervix, because the way that I think about the female body in particular is that, you know, we can send our breath, you know, to our lungs or to our womb, but the cervix is really like the bottom. It's like the deepest place of our body. And so when I send my breath down there, I am actually sending my breath through my entire torso. And for me, that is the most grounding, the most, I don't know, like integrating. I feel like the essence that is me just kind of like comes into my body and like anchors down into this place. And, you know, whereas before I might be up here, I'm now like fully into my torso.
Confidence is not this air of a picture. It's not this air of a visualization of how great I look and how well I'm doing and all of that. It's vulnerability, and it's the ability to every day recognize that you're going to be different. Something might be different from day to day. And it's learning how to honor when we're uncomfortable, and when we're hungry, and when we need to take care of ourselves. And understanding that not everyone is going to have access to the same amounts of care. Not all of us are going to have time or whatever it is. And that it's going to look different on everyone. And some days are going to be better than the other. You know, healing is not linear. Some days you're going to feel like, oh yeah, I'm owning myself today. I know that, you know, my belly is big, but I'm going to celebrate and I'm going to feel like a goddess. And, you know, and then some days I feel like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm never going to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G if I don't get this, and this together. And it's being able to step back and go, okay, is that my voice? Do I really believe that about myself? It's that awareness.
Yeah.
You know, and the understanding that the thing behind our eyes that's paying attention, the thing that's noticing, like, that's us.
Love it.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I really enjoyed being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Denell. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Abba, for holding this space.